Hi guys, I'm Jules from Diopigadia. Welcome to this new video where I will talk a bit about new plots. Maybe you already have an idea, you have something at hand, or you are looking for one. I will try to give you a bit of useful tips and feedback based on my personal experience. Many people would think that the way to get started is to buy land if you want to get going in permaculture. I think it's better to get started where you are. There is probably opportunities around you, whether it's family or friends that have maybe a garden or some piece of land that you can get started. And it will also give you time to consider the future and to see if you like it. Generally speaking, permaculture can be adapted to any kind of setting. So I think it's interesting to, not look for the perfect land, but see what you can get. I mean, let's imagine you just find a piece of rock somewhere that you have no real like good soil in it. You were thinking maybe permaculture is growing veggies, but just like on a rock in the middle of nowhere, you could maybe do stuff. What about, for example, animals? You could raise animals. Like one question is, can you feed the animals? Maybe, there is some grass around, or if you cannot feed the animals, why not do bees, for example, be a beekeeper? If you can't do bees or you're not interested in bees, I mean, really let your imagination go. Maybe you have a good view. You could do like some kind of community knowledge exchange project. If it's a beautiful place, maybe you can host people there in an alternative way and develop an alternative lifestyle that's already permaculture, and you can learn a lot of things through this process. And there is a great advantage of already having a piece of land at hand, is that you can actually spend the time that is needed for observing this plot. It's one of maybe the first permaculture principle is to observe before you interact. In the reality, I would say that's sometimes difficult because, like, if you want to buy a plot, normally in permaculture we recommend 1 year, so to see the plot through the different seasons. But if you want to buy a plot, it's very difficult to have the time to have this 1 year beforehand. Whereas if you have something available, maybe even you know a bit the setting, you know how the elements are playing. This observing stage is really important. I think we always come with like pre-made ideas about something and assumptions, and in the reality, things turn out differently. For example, in our situation, in the plot that we have, I mean, you read a lot in permaculture, in water management, about swales and how to manage to keep the water. One, of course, it's also useful on our plot, but it happens that we have a very flat plot, and one part of the plot gets actually flooded during the winter. So one of the big challenges is actually to get the water out of the plot. So that's the kind of thing that I wouldn't have thought about, and I realized only in the first winter. So yeah, there is a lot of stuff that you can observe, microclimates, the different type of soil. A plot is never a one homogeneous. I don't know if you can say that. It's never like it has like specific differences in the different places, the exposition to the sun, the different types of soils, what's growing in some places and others, water, frost, all these things play in different ways in different seasons. So yeah, spend the time on the plot before building any kind of hard infrastructure. At the beginning, don't spend too much time designing, working on a map on your office. It's maybe better to spend some time out there and slowly have the design, the ideas in your mind, and putting them in the paper as it goes, and not plan everything in advance before you took the time to observe. Another thing to consider is also that's really something we experienced. Design evolves over time, so it's really hard to make a one-shot design. Um, Maybe it's more easy, like if it's a landscape garden or something, landscaping a garden. But if you're planning to live there, your life is long and things change. I changed, I think about 3 or 4 time of where I was living, which is maybe the center of a design, the zone 0 where you live. Um, for example, one time it was at the beginning, it was not centered enough on the land. It was too far from the well. So we changed one time there, and yeah, some other changes. But after a couple of years, turned out that it was too much in the center of the of the project, because a lot of people were coming, and the arrival of volunteers really changed the how the project was running. And I realized it was too much to live right in the center of everybody, and I actually needed my private space. So you see, in this way, you like the whole design changes completely, because where you are living is a very important part of the design. Projects evolve. You don't know if you're not going to at one point extend to another plot, which will change the configuration, or maybe it's even your activity that changes. You were same thing in our case. We were planning to, at the beginning, mostly live in autonomy, and then start to sell a bit more veggies. And we realized that what was working the best was working with tourists, that there is a lot of tourists here. So now we're turning more into ecotourism. And so the original plan has changed, and the way we organize the production. And also, yeah, now we're extending to some new houses nearby, and this also changed completely the design. So don't panic. Anyway, it's still good to design. You need to. So yeah, get going. But I would say, as I would recommend, like, not to put too much efforts in the infrastructures in the beginning, or at least um, make them movable if it's possible. Yeah, movable chicken coops or caravans, or just, like, maybe not start by building and giving all your efforts into building a super beautiful clubhouse and neglecting the rest, when in the end, this might change. So it's better to build the infrastructures slowly, so to get going, and then with time see really where things will be settled. Another very important aspect is to look around the plot, what others are doing, what's growing well, and yeah, don't go too exotic, especially from the beginning. I would say this is taking a risk. It's better to go with things that they work, plant stuff that they work around, and yeah, go meet the neighbors, go talk with them, see what they are doing, inspire yourself, copy a little bit, and then when you are more confident and you have something that starts to already work good, then you can maybe go to something more exotic that you will be the only one in the area to do. But maybe that's not a good idea to start with this from the beginning. Just get going, hop in the permaculture train, and yeah, you will learn on the way, and I think it's the most important thing. If you are in the situation that maybe you have a little money and you are ready to invest in some land, then it's a quite stressing process. Yeah, so let's discuss about this. Maybe that's actually the hardest moment to find a good plot. I think also that's a moment that a lot of people uh, are afraid to make the step, because the grass is always greener somewhere else. And you will always find in all the plots there is good things and bad things. And it's always tempting to think that, you know, you can find better, you can find cheaper. That's a bit of a tricky thing because you will be postponing maybe forever. um, it's good to start with something, whatever it is. If one day, you know, you want to move on and maybe change plot, buy another one, it's not a problem. You know, you will always have gained a lot of experience. You will have set a permaculture system which would have add value to the land, whether it is just economically or ecologically. I mean, what a reward to look back at a plot that you transform from some kind of desert to like a beautiful food forest. And yeah, maybe you will find others that are willing to continue and to take on your steps to, you know, go forward in a permaculture way. You have to start somewhere, and yeah, moving on to another plot, I think it's a very interesting experience to start over with a clean sheet when you have already gained a lot of experience. I mean, don't see that as a big drama. Of course, you will leave behind a place that you love and you put a lot of effort into. But I mean, we're not doing this, you know, for us. So you know, you can be grateful that, you know, you already did that and be proud of yourself. Okay, so if you're looking for a plot, the first question is where. In permaculture, we think in terms of zoning. That's usually used in a local way, but I would say it's very important also to consider the more um, wider scale. It depends a lot of your situation and how you see yourself in the future. Um, yeah, if you're living in a city and you're planning to live to the countryside, for example, are you ready to leave your friends and family far away from you? In my case, I it was very clear I didn't want to. I wanted to live as far as possible from the city, actually, but I understand a lot of people, you know, want to find a compromise and to, you know, it's so for this there is a lot of space in the suburbians, more or less far from the center of the city. It's great places to start a permaculture project. You don't have to be in a remote place, and also you will have you know, good access to the local market of the town where you can eventually sell your product. Also, you will know the people around, and that's also, of course, of great help. Um, yeah, you have to think also in terms of what are the network of what is the network of communication around you. Basically, train and roads and buses, all these things. You know, how far are you from the small town around and the bigger town? Here we are about 15 minutes from a nice little town that has quite some stuff that we need for work and, you know, food for animals and stuff like this. You know, 15 minutes, it's great. 10 minutes is better. 5 minutes make a difference. It's also a bit of fuel if you have to go there every day. And then, you know, the bigger town would be like Kalamata, which is 1 hour plus driving. This is very far. So yeah, to think of, you know, also if you have kids, of course, schools and how you get there and how you can go back home to visit your family, for example. If the plot is standing by a road that you have a lot of traffic, you know, you can have people coming at your farm and buying the product there. That's also something to take into account. Who would be your customers to what you would be selling, or maybe you don't have to sell stuff, you know, but who will be the visitors, who will come there, and how. That's very important. I personally was attracted to Greece, yeah, for different reasons. I already had my girlfriend there, and yeah, I was in love with the country. It was a compromise because, you know, my parents, for example, they have to come and visit sometime. They want to come and visit, and they have to take the plane, which is, you know, has a footprint, so it's carbon footprint. So it's not, it's always compromises. Of course, if you have the mindset to really go further than where you come from, then you can also pick a bit what you're looking for in terms of climate and general culture, and so that's also interesting, but of course it's quite specific. One thing to consider is what's around you in terms of pollutions. Um, you know, there is always like a pollution. There is pollutions everywhere. So what's surrounding you? Is it big fields of cereals that they are spraying a lot? Um, Also, yeah, it's I think it's really tempting for many to try to find a wild, remote place. It's a perfect setting to start a permaculture project, but I would say it's a bit cheating, because um, natural wild place are actually doing very great to regenerate and to be fertile, and they don't really need you. Whereas there is so many places that have been impacted by our civilization or development, agriculture practices and such, that I think that's a bit of a personal opinion, but I think that it's very interesting to try to make some kind of little oasis of permaculture in places that are a bit destroyed. So of course it will be harder to get going and to make it work, but I find it rewarding to manage to bring back biodiversity in a place that's been quite damaged. Of course, it's also always a compromise. You don't want to make your life too difficult, so it's interesting to find a place that, yeah, you can do something useful, but still is not a completely destroyed area. On a more local level, you want to, I mean, there is a lot of information about this, and it's way too much information for this video. You want to be looking at water, that's the number one, and then of course many aspects like soil, sun exposition, winds, frost, fire exposure. I mean, there is so many different aspects to take into account, and that each of them deserve a whole video. I want to focus more on stuff that are a bit less talked about and very relevant. For example, neighbors. A bad neighbor can ruin your life, and a great neighbor can really make it so beautiful. So yeah, you really have to go around and talk to them, and yeah, get a first feeling a bit of how things would be. I mean, generally you have different neighbors, so this balances out a bit. But yeah, it changes everything to have like nice people around, or people that you have a bad feeling about them. Maybe it will impact you in the longer term. Talking with neighbor, you can have a lot of information about your plot. I remember when we came to look for a plot, there was this beautiful, luxuriant little valley nearby, and yeah, I was a bit in love with the place. It was in autumn. It was really beautiful. And then talking with people, they told me, oh, but in the winter, the frost, it comes down the mountain, and it gets really cold. So we changed plan a bit, and yeah, I did see that the next winter, the nice little beautiful valley turned out into like a foggy, frosty, kind of tragic looking place. And yeah, I'm so glad we're not there. So yeah, going to neighbors, checking them out, talking with them about different stuff, and you never know what information you will get, and just get a general feeling about them. That's like number one priority. Another thing that's a bit underrated and people don't talk too much about is the access to organic matter. um, if we're talking regenerative agriculture, or any kind of permaculture place that you want to grow stuff, you will need huge amounts of organic matter. In our case, for example, what we found is the olive leaves that they are cleaned out in the olive oil from the olive mill when they are making olive oil. Makes big piles, and we're trying to use that. Um, we have different inputs, but depending where you are, you will also have different inputs or not. It's very interesting to look at that, where you can find how far is it from your plot. Maybe it's hay if you're in a cereal area. Some places also, especially Northern Europe, they have like really great compost facilities, and nobody's really using the compost. So if you have access to that, that's like a jackpot. Yeah, so you want to look around and really think about what you will find and how you will get it. To conclude, I think it's really in the end the place that you will find that will determine, that will tell you what you will do. And yeah, the plans change, and it's only after some time experimenting and trying stuff in this specific land that you have access to, that you will see what works better for you and how you make it work and what's going to be the setting and all this stuff. It's okay to have a dream plan and want to do things in a specific way. In this case, you really have to find a plot that fits what you imagine. That's maybe possible, but yeah, once again, things change. So yeah, be flexible and be capable of adapting to your context. If you are already in the quest for a plot and dreaming of your future there, or you're already looking at what you have at hand and looking forward to get your hands dirty, uh, congratulations. Very happy for you. It's exciting times. It can be a bit stressful, but it's also a great moment for imagination and creativity. So good luck with it, and yeah, thanks for watching. I hope these couple of tips were useful, and I see you in the next one.